following program is intended for mature audiences.
A democratic republic of sports. The Sportsocracy with ESPN Asheville hosts Tank Spencer and Jeremy Greene.
And welcome into the Sportsocracy. I'm Tank Spencer. Jeremy Greene is alongside, and we are in the Ingles studio. Ingles Supermarkets, low prices, love the savings, and 2022 post-Senior Bowl mock drafts, 7-rounders. Continuing here in the Sportsocracy, hit that subscribe button so you see all of our team-by-team content. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings, a team that I've tried to believe in over the last couple of years.
Well, there's a lot of reason to believe in.
Yeah,
I think they have one of the best young offensive lines in the league. Kirk Cousins was the 6th best graded quarterback in the league last year. Justin Jefferson is one of the best young receivers in the league. You just have to round these things out and improve that defense.
Yes.
But the defense is completely different when Danielle Hunter is on the field. Now, with everything that's gone on with Everson Griffin, you need somebody on the other side of him.
So, with the first pick in the draft by the Minnesota Vikings, comes in at number 12 overall, George Karlaftis, edge rusher out of Purdue.
I am sure some people are going to be shocked that he was still here because he is such a good edge rusher. Don't be. He is falling down draft boards. Not markedly. It's just the more you watch him, the more you go, are you just a full effort guy? Like, is there anything about you that is – because he's not really fast. He's not crazy strong. He's got some – he's athletic. He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list. He can do all of the things, but he's raw. For a guy that played as much as he did, he's really raw. And he's not very good against the run. Now, that being said – when you're on the opposite side of Danielle Hunter, it makes it way easier for you to be a really good pass rusher. And I think he will do that from the get-go. I also think there is room for him to grow into a full 4-down role. And Minnesota's defense fits that quite nicely. You got Anthony Barr that's a free agent this year. Sheldon Richardson probably won't be back. There's a lot of flux on this defense. And Karlaftis is one of the few guys in this draft that I feel like I know what your floor is. Floor is you're a high-end situational edge rusher. High-end. Because he is one of the best pass rushers in this class. Worst-case scenario, you never round into form and you're a 2-down hand-in-the-dirt D lineman. Best-case scenario, you're one of the 10 to 12 best edge rushers in this class, and you remind everybody of Trey Hendrickson, who just did a tremendous amount to help the Cincinnati Bengals. And that is that's his closest comp to me in the NFL.
No, very little cash on hand in the free agency period. Minnesota going to have to focus on getting better on this defense through the draft. So in the second round, 46 overall, Perrion Winfrey. Caught a lot of eyes at the Senior Bowl, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma.
So Minnesota hasn't had a pass rush for so long that I feel like you have to double up here. Perrion Winfrey comes in and is immediately top 15, top 20 interior pass rushing defensive lineman in the NFL. I get asked a lot of questions about this kid, 6'4", 300 pounds. The thing that makes me nervous is that he's going to have to be next to somebody like a Dalvin Tomlinson. Mm-hmm. Confused my Tomlinsons. Or Michael Pierce. He's going to have that run-clogging, not nose because they play a 4-man front, but the run stuffer. He needs that guy beside him because he's not very good against the run. Now, that being said, he's the best pass-rushing interior lineman in this class. And I don't really think it's all that close. Started at the JUCO level. Height, weight, speed are all off the charts. I'm curious to see what he runs. If he comes in under 5, I don't know that he'll be here. I don't think he's going to do that. I think it comes in somewhere in that low 5s to 5'1" range, and the shuttles and the cone drills and the sudden burst drills jump off the page. And again, this is a guy that helps your pass rush. Take some of the impetus off the corners, because whether you bring back Patrick Peterson or not, the secondary is not a strength. I can't say it's a huge weakness, but it's not a strength. And one of the ways to increase that without actually moving the pieces around, especially when you're this far up against the cap, is to bring in somebody like Perrion Winfrey.
Well, you mentioned the secondary with Peterson there. Xavier Woods, also a free agent, so maybe this next pick can help alleviate that problem in the third round, 77th overall. Jalen Petrie, the safety out of Baylor.
And I have a slightly different grade on this kid than a lot of people do because he's a very good in-the-box safety. I think he can play deep more than other people do. He's not a bad cover guy. And if you pair him with Harrison Smith, I think they're both good enough deep and good enough against the run that you become very multiple. And it becomes much harder to figure out what it is that you do. He had a very good, or so far he's had a very good pre-draft process. He's going up the board. Kind of played a linebacker role at Baylor, and I could see him doing that with the Minnesota Vikings. You got to think about where this coaching staff is coming from. All right, so Kevin O'Connell comes off the Sean McVay tree. What have they always done defensively? Accumulate talent, build the scheme around it. Jalen Petrie is the best defensive player on this board at this point in the draft by quite a ways. Does he necessarily fit directly with what Minnesota does right now? No. But I've seen where this guy came from, and I know how they operate. Really fond of the GM coming out of Cleveland. Spent a lot of time in San Francisco, too. So high-end drafter, draft the best player on the board, and Jalen Petrie is the best player on the board.
In the fifth round at 155 overall, Josh Thompson, cornerback from Texas.
Yeah, he's another one that I'm really remiss to call him a corner because right now he's a football player that just so happens to line up on a wide receiver because he doesn't do anything overly well, but he's a very natural athlete. I think the hips are very fluid. The footwork is good for how raw he is. Now, he's not a very good tackler, and he's going to have to add some bulk to the frame, which may take away what he does best, which is be real fast. He does that really, really well. Mm-hmm. He's very physical in the run game. He's just not a very good tackler. So I think those things can come along. He's raw. You expect him to be the third, fourth corner, first year in the league with the hope that 2 to 3 years down the road he'll be at worst, a starting slot, but I do think he could play on the outside if you put enough work into him.
In the sixth round, 182 overall, Velus Jones Jr., wide receiver out of Tennessee.
Well, this might bring back shades of a days gone by where you take a Tennessee receiver who, what does he do really well? Oh, he athletes real well. Yeah, you did that one time with Cordero Patterson. The only problem is you took him in the first round. Velus Jones is a guy you're going to take in the sixth round, and he's a ridiculous athlete. I mean ridiculous athlete. 6, flat-ish, about 200 pounds, going to run sub 4.4. Not the greatest route runner you've ever seen, but he's got really good hands, and he's so good with the ball in his hand. This is one of those guys that you have to generate touches for. Jet sweeps, RPOs, things like that. Just get the damn ball in his hand. I don't care how you do it. It's not going to be easy at first because he does not run routes well, and you're going to have to put the time into the kid. But if you get the ball in his hands, good things will happen.
Minnesota Vikings in the sixth round, 190 overall. A lot of talk about the quarterback position. What's going to happen there? Well, this isn't a replacement by any stretch for but developmental guy Skylar Thompson, quarterback out of Kansas State.
He's a very interesting evaluation because until I started hearing people put him in their top 10s, I did not have him there. Now I'm watching more of the tape going, you're really hard to explain because he's not crazy athletic. He's not crazy big. He's 6'2", about 220, decent enough build, not really as tall as I would want him to be. And he's not crazy fast. But he's really mobile, and he's just a winner. I just like this kid. Not the most accurate quarterback you've ever seen. Developmental guy, shouldn't be above the practice squad level for at least a year. But in a class like this, where I only have draftable grades on 8 quarterbacks in this draft, and I had 9, but one of them went back to school, you're going to have to get cute if you need another quarterback on the roster, and I feel like Minnesota needs another hand on deck. Kellen Mond is ultimately going to be the future at quarterback, I think. They redshirted him to the highest degree this year. I think he's the backup in the 2022-23 season, and you just kind of push everything down a peg. Skylar Thompson's the practice squad guy that doesn't dress on game days, emergency 3. Get him in the room, get him around Kirk Cousins, get him acclimated to the NFL way, and I think he can be a backup in the NFL.
Second pick in the 6th round, 206 overall, James Skowsky, linebacker out of Clemson. This guy's finally graduating.
Yeah, I feel like he's been at Clemson for about 407 years.
Right.
Crazy thing, only played 41 games. Feels like he's been at Clemson, and we're in the Clemson market. It feels like he's been there for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
This kid is I'm not going to mean this as the slight that it sounds. This kid's too dumb to realize how unathletic he is. And that's actually a positive. This is somebody that, worst case scenario, is going to be somebody that flies around on special teams, somebody you want on your kickoff coverage, and if you have to play him in a pinch, no problem. He is about as athletic as a wet fart. And that's about being as nice as I can. He's 6 foot tall, 240 pounds. If he was 6'2", 255, and ran a 4.5, he'd be a first-round pick. Gutsy kid, hard-hitting, smart as hell, which is now there have been some mental boo-boos. Don't get me wrong. But very experienced, a guy that I think can come in and contribute right away, just has some, no doubt, physical limitations. 5 years ago, he would have played safety in the NFL, and he wouldn't have been able to do that because he's not fast enough. Now, with the NFL getting smaller, I think he can be a run support type linebacker that you're just going to have to know he's not going to offer much in the way of coverage.
All right, and then the 7th round, 229th overall, last pick of the draft for the Minnesota Vikings, Luke Tenuta, offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. This kid's big.
You go back to the same well that you took Christian Darris out last year. So you should be pretty familiar with this kid because he was on the other side of Darris. Look, there's a lot of raw for somebody that played as much as he did because he was a 3-year starter at Virginia Tech. But there's still a lot of raw in the technique, and I kind of feel like he's a really poor man's version of Christian Darris because he's going to come in and be a good run blocker immediately. It's the pass blocking technique you're going to have to teach him. Good thing is this is one of the best young lines in the league. I like Brian O'Neill. I loved Christian Darris. I still do. And this is the swing tackle. And I think he can come in and do that very, very early, help in the run game. You're going to have to level off the technique because he stays really high. He's 6'7", and I think that might be underselling him. He may be 6'8", 310, 315 pounds. The weight fluctuated a little bit, which is why he goes into the 7th round, because this is a kid that could eat himself out of the league. There were times that he looked like he was more in the 335, 340 range. But very, very strong. You just have to get him past the I'm stronger than you point, which is what happens with a lot of late-round developmental tackles. You have to teach them how to harbor how big and nasty they are, and that's exactly what this kid is. The only thing is that he's big and nasty without really any technique behind it. So in the NFL, speed rushers are going to annihilate him early. But I think that can be refined. You put him with Christian Darris, who he is familiar with. And I'll be honest with you, you can train these two guys together because they have the exact same problem. I love the fit of Tenuta in Minnesota.
And the Minnesota Vikings 7th-round 2022 post-Senior Bowl mock draft by Jeremy Greene. It's in the books. Minnesota, they've been that team that's just arm's length. They've gone a little bit further away from the playoffs for the last 2 years. Whole new front office and coaching staff. Maybe they can get it done.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. When a new regime comes in, how do you build the team? Closest to the ball. Well, you've already got the offensive line done. And I know some Minnesota Vikings fans are not dead sold on that. Look, they weren't coached well. Mike Zimmer, by the end, it was going horribly, and everybody in the media was hearing it. They have lost this team. Nothing is actually accelerating, and the offense was still good, and you still damn near made the playoffs. Whether you agree with these picks, disagree with these picks, or if there's a player you would like to know how they fit with your Minnesota Vikings, feel free to comment those in the comments. I answer them every day. And this will be the first of 3 mock drafts I do. There's this one after free agency cools down after the combine, and then 2 days directly preceding to the 2022 NFL Draft in Las Vegas, April 28th, which we will cover every pick of live right here in the Sportsocracy.
Do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button so you get all of our team-by-team content throughout the draft scouting season. I'm Tank Spencer. He's Jeremy Greene, and we will see you next time.